So this afternoon, I'm joined by Mr. James Pearman, who's running for House District 12 in Greenwood and McCormick Counties. Mr. Pearman, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Well, let's start by giving our members a chance to get to know you a little bit. So if you would tell me about your personal and professional backgrounds and how those shape your views on the importance of education.
Okay. I'm a college graduate. I have two bachelor's degrees, one in agriculture and one in it's actually a business degree in computer information systems management. I got the first degree in agriculture from Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas. I grew up in Southeast Texas, and that's why I ended up going to school there. And after college, of course, I had to move on to where the job was, and I worked in agriculture for about 13 years. And when I left agriculture and changed careers, I had been a co-op manager for a number of years, farmers co-op. And while I was working in the co-op environment, that's where I went on and got my second degree in management to go along with that to help me move up. And that was from Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. So then as years went along, I had an opportunity to move into the oil and gas business. So when I left agriculture, I went to work at a refinery as an operator. And I was there for like, 6 or 7 years. And then I left the refinery and went to work for a different oil company, Whiting Oil and Gas. They were building new gas plants up in north central Colorado. And I went up there and was in on building 2 new gas plants. And how we ended up in Greenwood then finally is my wife's family has lived out here for a long time, over 20 years. And we'd come out to visit. We always just loved it here. And I had a problem with my back where I couldn't really continue doing an actual hard labor job as it could be at sometimes. Either you were on the board running it or you were outside, and that required a lot of manual work. And we decided just to go ahead and make our move out here where my wife could help take care of her mom. And we actually set up our own business now. It's called R&J Ventures LLC. And we buy properties and fix them up and rent them out. And that's what we've been doing since we've been here. Now, I think a strong system of public education is just good for the whole community. It's a positive impact both socially and economically if you have a good education system where people can thrive and pursue their interest.
Yeah, well, you have covered the United States, and we're glad you're here in South Carolina now.
Oh, we love it here.
Well, one thing that, listening to your personal story, clearly education was important to you for career advancement. It sets you up for what came next in your career trajectories.
Exactly.
A big focus of our state legislature for the last 2 years, Speaker Lucas has talked about it as educational reform to make sure that our education system is preparing students for life beyond high school. And so there's been this huge comprehensive reform package debated in the General Assembly, but it hasn't passed both chambers yet. So in the coming session, educational reform is likely to be on the table again. And if you're elected, what do you view as the top issues of reform our state needs to look at in education to make sure that kids are preparing for a career in the same way that you were able to do through your education?
Right. I think one of the big problems, just from my research of looking at things, is the teacher retention. The teachers don't get paid enough here. I think I saw an article where you're like over 500 teachers short. Was that last year or something?
Yes.
That all I could see from that is increased class size, and the teachers, if they don't make enough, that's not the only reason everyone's teaching that's doing that. It's they had a calling for it, but you have to live your life too, and you want to be comfortable. I mean, we ought to be setting a pay and benefits where we can turn away teachers from coming into our school system because we do pay the best and attract the best and not have everyone leaving or we're hurting for teachers and just take anyone then. It kind of doesn't make sense to me why, and I haven't been in politics and I don't know, claim to know what each teacher makes, but I know from talking to people that it's not great. And even some teachers, the funding is so low at the schools, they have to reach in their own pocket sometimes for supplies for the classroom. And that just isn't right. That needs to be fixed.
Well, you are right on pay. We currently average 9th out of 13 in the Southeast when it comes to average teacher pay. And you talked about funding and not having sufficient funding in schools, and our state's wrestled with that for generations. Our state Supreme Court has ruled that the General Assembly has not met the constitutional obligation to fund public schools, and it's created inequities across the state where some areas have sufficient funding, some do not, some have sufficient teachers, some do not. So as a member of the General Assembly, what do you see as the essential steps our state needs to take to promote equity across all zip codes and counties for every child?
I think that again goes to the funding. We need to figure out, just being not on the inside track that they are there in Columbia, where is all of our education lottery money going? Why are their schools hurting with that money? I know I read that a lot of that money goes for scholarships. That's great, but if you're not funding K through 12 to set people up to be able to go, then what are you really helping? Then you're helping a few, but you're leaving a lot out. So definitely we need help with the funding, and I think along with that is somehow put a limit on class size so teachers can be manageable with the students they have. And I don't know the answer for it, but I know that disruptive students can be a problem. You don't want to leave any kids out, but maybe I don't know, and I'm willing to, if I get elected, I'm willing to talk to the teachers and find out what they think will work and what needs to be done. But is there a way to get those students that are teachers decide are disruptive and can't get help from parents to, I don't know if necessarily all go to a problem school, not saying the school is a problem, but where troubled students can be managed better or have a separate area in the school where you can get those kids out of class where the ones that want to learn can learn.
Well, one thing that's been advanced in the area of funding over the last few months in our state when it comes to different educational settings is Governor McMaster has pushed for the creation of private school scholarships out of public dollars. Now, he's tried to do that through federal relief dollars for COVID, and our state Supreme Court has struck it down as a violation of our state constitution. But the governor has said in the coming legislative session, he wants the General Assembly to establish something similar, of private school scholarships out of public dollars, and he wants to see it on a recurring basis out of state revenues. So if elected, and if the governor comes to the General Assembly with that request in his State of the State address, what's your position on that?
I've thought about this quite a bit, and I'm not really necessarily, and I haven't truly set exactly where I stand on it, but I don't really quite get the purpose of, that's great that you can send these kids to private school, but everyone that wants to go to private school can't go or afford it. So it seems unfair. It seems like a better use of that money would be going to actually fund our public schools correctly, where they are up at a level where you don't need to look at other options.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground on educational policy. You hit on a lot of the things in the reform bill and answers around class size and around career readiness. So I've kind of phrased the questions, but I want to open it to you to make sure that our members know what you want them to know about you. So is there anything that you haven't covered that you want to make sure a group of teachers knows before they go and vote in November?
Yeah, if I'm elected, I want to work with groups like the PTSA and the South Carolina for Education to find out what the teachers need. And I would like, if I got in, to get together with these groups and maybe even some parent groups, and we could sit down and talk and find out what's truly needed and not have a politicians guess what is actually needed in the classroom. I've never been a politician, and if I'm going to be a representative, I want to represent. I don't really care what the party stance is going to be on it. I want to know what you think. You're the experts at it. I'm not. I've been a student, but I'm not a teacher. So
Well, go ahead.
Also, I'm sorry. Yeah, I also was reading in there that there's a problem with the school with the pension for teachers. that needs to be, that's inexcusable for that to ever not be completed and it be accessible for when teachers want to retire. That needs to be shored up, and you were promised that money, and that's what needs to happen. And I would vote, and I would even work to push through to make sure that that is funded if you want me to do that fight, which I think every teacher would.
Sure.
So I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, every teacher and every state employee and public servant across the state, because that impacts our police officers and our firefighters and state employees. A great point.
Yeah, your servants that are, you're not making a killing. You're trying to just, you're doing what you love, but you want to survive too. And after you've done and want to retire, that you were promised that money to retire. It ought to be there. It shouldn't be taken away. I don't get it.
Sure. Well, Mr. Pearman, we appreciate your time this afternoon and for sharing with our members. And thank you for your willingness to serve our state by running for elected office. And we just wish you all the best this fall.
Yes, thank you. And definitely keep in contact. If I get elected, I want to speak to you more.
Absolutely. Will do. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.